Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Now, I might have a spooky podcast on the horizon for you guys and dolls, because I'm going to be staying in room 217 at the Stanley Hotel in Colorado soon. Now, movie geeks will know instantly that that's the room that Stephen King was inspired to write The Shining, after a few spooky dreams and encounters. I think a few years later, Jim Carrey filmed Dumber and Dumber there, and he stayed in that same room, lasted a few hours before being moved to another room on the other side of the hotel. So I'm going to try and beat Jim Carrey at this one, and if it's not too scary, maybe, just maybe, I'll record a show live from the room. How does that sound? But enough of me and my travels. As someone that made a name for himself on LinkedIn, when I won the LinkedIn Top Voice Award as a tech writer, and someone that is passionate about tech and writing, today's guest got under my skin a little. So after thinking about what would happen if you combine LinkedIn and the darknet, he was inspired to write his own novel. Now that novel is called Killed In. Now there are many explanatory books on the darknet, but there were no novels based on this fascinating phenomenon, so he felt inspired to fill that gap. So if you love tech and you love LinkedIn and you love reading books, or maybe you think you've got a book in you too, but you wouldn't know where to start, then today's episode is tailor-made just for you. So buckle up, hold on tight, as I beam your ears all the way to London here in the UK, so we can speak with Ashley Boolell. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. So I am Ashley Boolell. I am a writer. I've been doing this for around 5 years now. It happens that I am a French citizen. My first books were published in French, and Killed In, which is my latest novel, is written in English. Now, some people might wonder how come I can write in French and English. It just happens that I was born and raised in Mauritius, this tiny little island which is in the south of the Indian Ocean, and it is a former French colony and a former British colony, so we have both systems cohabiting with each other. But I was born and raised in English, but when I was growing up, I used to speak French with my parents. And then I studied in France for 5 years before working there for 7 years, and then I moved to the UK. But I took more than just my career in finance, because I'm a financier at heart, from France to come to the UK. I also took my career as a writer. Writing happens to be my second career.
Wow, that's quite an achievement, having not a book just written in English, but also published in French too.
Well, yes. I mean, the thing is, writing for me, it's second nature.
Yeah,
it really is. When I was growing up, I didn't have anything like video games, these kinds of things. It was all books, really. And I have some people in my family who are, I'd say, literally intellectuals. It was all about understanding what this or that great writer meant by this or that idea, and I was always surrounded by people who wanted to have a better understanding of great writers and what good writing would be all about. So when I came to France, the environment was conducive for me to write in French, because I happen to be bilingual, and bilingualism is not just about being able to write and speak in a different language. It's also about thinking in that language. And when I came to the UK, it was 5 years ago now, literally, and I was not ready to write in English because my abilities were not good enough in this language. But then what happened is that all the reflexes which I developed over time, when it comes to being a writer, I started applying them to English. And this is how my latest novel, Killed In, was born.
Fantastic. Now, a guest recently told me that every man should write a book, father a child, and plant a tree, because they will all live on long after we've left this world. So I invited you on today to talk about that new book you just mentioned there, because I think tech fans should really love. and I especially enjoy how you crafted it together. But before we talk about it, what was the inspiration behind the book? What was the catalyst that set you on this path to bring that story to life?
Well, the novel is called Killed In.
Yeah.
Now, the title, let's start with the title, Killed In. It's a bit of a brutal title. And the title was inspired from LinkedIn itself, which is the social media platform designed for professionals. That's the first thing. The second thing is the book was inspired by the darknet. Now, we all know that when we use the internet, you will have some famous websites that 90% of the time we are all going to use. It would be Google, Facebook, Amazon, LinkedIn, maybe eBay. These websites will account for 90% of the traffic. But if you go beyond that, if you try to go beyond those logos and even further beyond the millions of websites that exist from a legal point of view, you will find the darknet. And it just happens that in 2014, I attended a conference at Chatham House. Chatham House is a think tank based in London, a very famous one. And there is this writer, there's this personality, I have to say, called Jamie Bartlett, who wrote a book on the darknet, on how the darknet itself exists and functions. And it was fascinating. It was fascinating because I had no idea that something like that existed and thrived in the form that it is today. And then what happened is that, I was looking for ideas for a new novel. I wanted to do something which not only was original, but maybe a bit disturbing, because it was going to be built around a novelty that people not really expecting. And this is how, Killed In came alive, I have to say, because it just happens that I realized that even though the darknet nowadays is a massive phenomenon, it is really something big, and we've seen that with the collapse of Alphabet, this massive underground website which was doing so many illegal stuff. Well, there was no novel that had been written based on the darknet. No like reference novel, I have to say. So I thought maybe I can fill the gap. Maybe I can fill the gap by creating a fiction, because it's very important to highlight it. It's a fiction which will involve a dysfunctional character called Chris Cord, and then it will be about making sure that the interaction between this dysfunctional character and the darknet creates all types of drama for a good story to just take place.
Now, you have received a lot of high praise for the book, and some say, I think, that it reminds them of Mr. Robot because of its high-tech and dark themes. And one of the things I do love as well is you get tech right, and there's nothing worse than books or movies that get tech wrong. So you obviously know your subject matter. But can you tell the listeners a brief synopsis of the book and what it's about, or the novel, should I say?
Sure, absolutely. Well, if you take the synopsis of Killed In, the first few lines of the synopsis look like this. Chris Cord is usually dismissed as being nothing more than a classic nobody, an unremarkable young coffee shop barista whose most apparent talent seems to be sprinkling chocolate on cappuccinos while faking a smile. However, when he's not pouring coffee, Chris is a darknet king. Beneath his lowly appearance and quiet demeanor, he is the creator and administrator of Oblivion, an underground online social network designed solely for criminals. So I'm just going to stop here for a moment. So the idea here is you have this person who is a coffee shop barista who is Mr. Everybody. When you go to a Starbucks, to a Caffè Nero, to a Costa Coffee, you order a cappuccino, you order a latte, you order an espresso. You would never suspect this person to be a darknet king. So that's the first element, the first interesting element of the story, is that it could be me, it could be you, it could be anyone who could be a darknet king.
One of the things that I read in a great review was a caffeine-fueled maelstrom ensues when misfit barrister Chris Cord unleashes forces of the dark net that he doesn't understand and can't control. So it was a great review and it really caught my attention. And I felt compelled to ask, do you think this could be a great Netflix show? I mean, I'm sure you would want it to be, but if it was, who would you want to play Chris Cord? Who do you visualise playing Chris Cord?
You know, that's a very good question. And some of the readers have told me that this could be an interesting Netflix series. Obviously, we're still far from this happening, but who knows? Hey, you know, I'm crossing fingers. Maybe one day one of my books will be adapted into a Netflix series. But I do not have the name of an actor in mind. However, it would have to be someone who can express the darkness that exists within someone.
Yeah.
In terms of all the issues that he's struggling with, in terms of the torment that is eating away at him. And it just happens that because I'm French, I didn't necessarily think about a British actor, but there is one actress in particular of which I'm a big fan. It's Eva Green.
Yes.
And Eva Green is known to be very, very good when it comes to expressing characters on screen that are a bit twisted. And it would have to be the male equivalent of Eva Green. If we can find like an Evergreen, a Mr. Evergreen, I have to say, then I think it would be a good match for you know, the character of Chris Cord. But in terms of a British actor or an American actor, I really don't know.
Maybe you've answered your own question there. Maybe it's Eva Green. Maybe it needs to be Christine Cord for the series.
It could be something like that.
Yeah.
Something like that. But I can definitely see, I can see the expression of Chris Cord as a person in front of me. I can imagine that expression. And the actress that would be able to do this is Eva Green.
So this book will have obvious appeal to tech fans, but they are a tough crowd, and if there are any kind of elements or any hints that the technology is not authentic, those audiences are quick to rip it apart. And we've all watched something on TV and heard a main character talk jumbled tech jargon by saying something like, I checked the internet headers on the email and gained access to the mainframe, and we've all winced a little bit. But audiences are so much more smarter now. So did you feel any pressure to get tech right, like they do in shows such as Mr. Robot?
No, not necessarily. I mean, Killed In at the end of the day is a fiction, and I really wanted to express my creativity when I was writing this book. The thing is, at one point, reality is always going to be stranger than fiction, and I can provide you with an example of not necessarily getting the tech right. When it comes to artificial intelligence, it's obviously a big subject nowadays. But what was the movie that defined artificial intelligence during the 1990s and even the early 2000s? It was Terminator.
Yeah.
Would we expect artificial intelligence to take the form of a Terminator? I don't think so. But here is an example with James Cameron, the creator of this movie franchise, who created something absolutely spectacular of artificial intelligence. And it's pure fiction. Thank God it's pure fiction. And, when it came to writing Killed In, I used a lot of my creativity to come up with things that are unexpected, are not necessarily true, but which are good to create a proper intrigue. So there is this, and not wanting to provide a spoiler here, there is this scene in the book where you have the flatmate of Chris Cord, Tony, who introduces Chris to the darknet, and he hacks into a bank's mainframe to replace a transaction with another transaction because he wants to transfer, to convert, I'd say, normal money on his account into bitcoins on the darknet to secure a transaction. So I wouldn't expect something like that to happen in real life. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but it serves to illustrate, at least in the book, how impossible some things might look to people who go on with their business on a day-to-day basis. But then, this might happen without them knowing anything about it. I mean, we live in a world of hackers. We live in a world where online identities are public, whether we like it or not, despite all the privacy settings and everything. So it was reminding them that, something like that can happen, but you're not necessarily aware of it.
So Killed In was also inspired from the dark web and LinkedIn, like you said at the beginning of the show. But I'm curious, what elements of both of these made you ask that question, what if? Yeah, I'm curious, what led you to that idea?
Well, social media is a big thing nowadays. The online persona of people counts just as much as their real persona. That's the first thing. But over the years during which I have used social media, and I use social media on a regular basis, just like everyone nowadays, I've often come across people who are very dissatisfied with the fact that it was too easy to find them.
Yeah.
Just too easy to find them. You see, you can find pretty much any professional on LinkedIn, pretty much anyone on Facebook, despite the fact that you may change your name and use, something a bit weird, like just using an abbreviation for your name on online platforms. They still get found. So, despite the fact that lots of people actually recognize the need for social media, a lot of people are actually not happy that it's so easy to find them. So, this is where the idea of creating an online platform in the darknet comes into play, because the Oblivion, which is the online platform created by Chris Cord in Killed In, is designed solely for criminals. Solely for criminals. Would you expect people like that to be perfectly visible on something like Twitter or LinkedIn or Facebook? I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so. So I created this world with Chris Cord where you have the biggest LinkedIn, quote unquote, in the dark web, but only the shadiest individuals are on that platform, and they're transacting between themselves. I mean, a normal transaction on LinkedIn, because I call that a transaction or interaction, if you want, would be, for example, a headhunter coming on LinkedIn, searching for a candidate, and then contacting him. That happens every day, every hour on LinkedIn. But what if a criminal would like to have his own community, and he needs to carry out transactions that would consist of illegal trades, drug trafficking, illegal arms dealing, these kinds of things, and he would have to find the right person to be able to do this for him. And the convenience of having an online platform underground, invisible, and completely, that would be appealing to a criminal in the world of Killed In. So this is where the question what if comes into play, is what if there is the LinkedIn equivalent in the dark web?
Now, there could be quite a few people listening to you speak here, and you're obviously very passionate about this book and your creativity. And you probably inspired a few people who want to write their own novel, but quickly get stuck with the most basic of questions, such as, what should my ideal word count be? Or what is the best way to self-publish? Especially because there's so many options now. So what advice would you offer to anyone that has an idea in their head, but wants to put it down on paper and get that novel out there?
The first thing that an aspiring writer needs to understand is that the possibilities of getting published nowadays are very broad. And what I mean by that is the traditional system is you would write a novel, you would send it to a publishing house, and then you would pray night and day to get a positive answer. But you don't have to go through that anymore. If you decide to take this route, well, all the power to you as a writer, and if it works, you will have the weight of a publishing house behind you, especially if it's a known one, it will be even better, and the marketing will be sorted. That's one way of doing it. But nowadays, getting published is not an issue. It's not an issue. You can do it very easily via Amazon, which is what I did with Killed In. And the reason why I decided to go to take this more difficult path, is because I wanted to retain complete control of the creative process. I wanted to build my own book franchise. And, there are so many online possibilities where you can create your own book covers. You can create your own website via Wix, for example. And then the whole question will be about, do I have content? Do I have a story that will bring value to the readers, that will entertain the readers? And if you can answer positively to that question, then you will be able to find your audience. So what I did for Killed In is I created the book cover on canva.com. I wrote the story and got it published on Amazon, set my own price. And then I started to develop the marketing via a website created on Wix with my blog on which I write articles for my readers. And then I created, with the help of a very talented friend, a video that explained the book itself. And this was done in a record time. I mean, from Killed In was just an idea in my mind in September 2017. And it was published in July 2017. 3 months later, I think it was October, November, I produced a video with the friend in question. The website was ready, and I had an audience. So you see, if I had gone through the traditional route of just sending out my book, my novel to a publishing house, it might have worked. I don't know. Maybe it's a risk that I should have taken. But I wanted certainty. And the only certainty which I've had was through my own effort to develop this book franchise. And so for anyone who's looking to write, the number one question that this writer should be asking himself is, do I create valuable content? And do I have an audience? Because getting published afterwards will not be that much of an issue.
Fantastic. It's an inspirational story you've been on that, and I really think you made the right choice because you've maintained that creative control. You've bootstrapped your way to create everything, including the promotional video, and I think it's fantastic. But what's next for you? I mean, should we expect more books and novels on the horizon, or will you be pitching an idea for a TV show? What's next in store for you?
Well, I think it's too early for me to pitch for a TV show, although I would love that.
Yeah.
I would love that. It would be a completely different challenge. But I am presently writing my 5th novel.
Oh.
And halfway through.
Is any teasers you can offer us there?
Well, yes. The inspiration this time is artificial intelligence.
Oh.
Yes. After The Darknet, I am taking artificial intelligence as the inspiration for this 5th novel. I can even give you the title, even though it might change later. This time the title will be The Disruptor.
Is it a positive look at artificial intelligence, or is there a negative aspect to it? Sorry to pry, but I'm quite curious.
It is going to be both. It is going to be both. I mean, new technologies come with a positive and a negative side, just like pretty much everything. And the problem, I think, with technology nowadays, especially technology which is just mind-boggling and making radical changes in the way people live, is that people focus too much on the positive aspect of this technology and not on the negative side of this technology. And there is nothing wrong in focusing on the negative side, because it allows people to achieve a better balance when it comes to managing this technology. It's like, in Parliament we have the government and we have the opposition.
Yes.
And it provides for a more balanced debate on a number of issues. And I think we should have the same approach with technology. And when it comes to artificial intelligence, I have this personal conviction that it's going to radically change the way we live, not necessarily during the next few years, but probably during the next decades. It has the potential, according to me, to change the way that authority is perceived in society. This is going to be one of the themes that I will be exploring in this new novel, and also has the capability of completely replacing people to some extent. So we're already seeing this happening, but the question will be, for the present generation, how much replacement or how much of positive and negative change will the next generation experience because of artificial intelligence.
I love how you're using your work here to take that dark look at technology, much the same way as Black Mirror does. But is there anything that you're open and excited about with tech trends such as blockchain and cryptocurrencies, etc.? Is there anything else out there that excites you at the moment or inspires you?
Well, I've been following the madness on cryptocurrencies. Just, I think everybody has, and for me, it came as no surprise when I saw the price of Bitcoin, crash down to earth as it did recently. But I think this is only one aspect of the new technologies that we should be taking into consideration. I mean, one of the interesting things that I have been looking at recently has been the creation of autonomous robots. Robots that can open doors, that can increase the strength of ordinary people. And I think it's absolutely fascinating to see something like that. Being robotic technology, I mean, when we think about this, we usually think about a factory. We think about, what's happening in a car manufacturing plant where, everything is being automated and everything. But what if we'd have these robots in our homes and making our lives easier? In especially when it comes to taking care of difficult situation. I'll give you an example. At the moment in Japan, they are exploring the possibility of using artificial robots and intelligence to take care of elderly people, because we have an aging crisis in Japan, and at one point this is probably going to come to Western Europe. Might not be because of the retirement crisis, but it might be that we could be using these robots in very, very dangerous situations. Like, I don't know, they could be helping firefighters. They could be helping out people facing life-threatening situations. And this is something I've been taking a keen interest in lately.
Oh, exciting times. So before I do let you go, could you remind the listeners of where they can buy your novel, Killed In, and also your website URL, social channels, or anywhere where they can reach you with any questions about what we've talked about today?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, the easiest way to get to know my work and also my latest novel is on my website, which is www.ashleyboolell.com. So that will be ASHLEYBOOLELL. You will find my contact details on the website. You can send me an email asking me questions about the book, asking me about Killed In, about what I'm working for the next novel, etc., etc. When it comes to buying my novel, you can go on Amazon and type Ashley Boolell or Killed In. The book will come up. It has a very distinctive cover. It's a black and white and red cover. I mean, Killed In is written in red and the rest is in black and white. And social channels, well, I have a YouTube video which explains the whole context about the novel. It's I think a 3-minute video, and if you type Ashley Boolell on YouTube, with Killed In included, you will find the video. And there are two creative inspirations that I explain in the video. One of them is grunge music, because grunge music played a big part in creating the mood in the book. And the other is the manga called Death Note, because I'm a big fan of Japanese manga as well. And these two actually helped me create the mood of the book.
Oh man, that's fantastic. So what I'll do, I'll add the links and that video, I'll add that to the blog post that accompanies this podcast so people can find that nice and easily. I love how you've gone from taking that little bit of inspiration, turning it into an idea, and then putting it all down on paper and self-publishing your own book. But not only that, you've then gone out and marketed it yourself and had this promotional video made. And doing all that on your own is a fantastic achievement. So a big thank you for coming on and sharing your story today, because I'm sure it's going to inspire others to do the same. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Neil. A pleasure to be with you today.
What I loved about chatting with Ashley today was, ironically, not just about his novel Killed In, but about his story. I mean, most of us dream about writing a book, but to have published books in 2 different languages, that is a huge achievement in itself. So I salute him for doing that. But I loved how he talked about the moment the idea for Killed In entered his head. But rather than just dismiss it like many of us do when we daydream, he went home and began working on his novel. So if you're listening to me now, anywhere in the world, thinking of writing your own novel, but quickly get stuck with those same basic questions, promise me you won't dismiss the idea, but you'll make a few notes and you'll take action today. Maybe even head over to my website, techblogwriter.co.uk/podcast. Check out the blog post accompanying today's episode and maybe reach out to Ashley directly or myself and we'll try and point you in the direction. Because for me, that's what this crazy old world is all about. We have a great time, we work hard, but we help each other out. And equally, if you have any tips for wannabe authors, feel free to share them with me by tweeting me at Neil C. Hughes or emailing me at techblogwriter@outlook.com, and we can share them on the show too. We're also on the home straight to episode 500. We've got a bit of time yet, but I wanted to throw out to you guys, who's been your favourite guest? What's the biggest takeaway that you've learned? What lessons have you learned? And what guest would you like to see come back on? I'd love to hear your thoughts as a listener on that. So please let me know before episode 500. You can also record a little audio message again on my website and we can play that for a special 500th birthday party. But once again, I'm taking far too much of your time up. So a big thank you for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.